This photo of 17-year-old Tylee Ryan was taken at Yellowstone National Park on September 8, 2019, likely just hours before she died. In her arms is her little brother, 7-year-old JJ. Behind her is Alex Cox, her uncle. Also on the trip, Tylee and JJ's mother, Lori Vallow. Investigators used cell phone data to track the movements of Alex Cox, ultimately leading them to the children's remains. According to a probable cause affidavit, his phone leaves the west exit of Yellowstone on September 8th at 6:40 p.m. Later that night, the phone is at Lori Vallow's apartment until 11:15. Then his phone returns to Lori Vallow's apartment from 2:42 a.m. until 3:47 the morning of September 9th. The affidavit reads, "This is significant not only because he is there in the middle of the night, but also because this is the only time in September he appears to go over to Lori's between midnight and 6 a.m. Later that same day, according to the affidavit, at 9:21 a.m., Alex Cox, or at least his phone, is at the home of Chad Daybell in the backyard near the east end of the barn. 14 minutes after Alex Cox appears to leave the Daybell residence, Chad Daybell sends this text to his wife Tammy at 11:53. "Well, I've had an interesting morning. I felt I should burn the limb debris by the fire pit before it got soaked by the coming storms. While I did so, I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun, and while he was still walking along, I got close enough that one shot did the trick. He is now in our pet cemetery. Fun times." That pet cemetery where Chad told his wife he was digging and burning branches is the same spot where Alex Cox's phone was traced to, according to the affidavit, and it is the same location where Tylee's charred remains were eventually found by investigators. The affidavit also describes a disturbing exchange in the spring of 2019 between Lori Vallow and her friend Melanie Gibb, reading, "Gibb was on the phone with Lori and heard Lori call Tylee a zombie, to which Tylee responded, 'Not me, Mom.' According to Gibb, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow both believed that once someone is a zombie, the only way to save their spirit is death."
That picture. We've been talking about that picture a lot, but it means a whole lot more when you put it into perspective and put it into this timeline. Let's bring everyone in. And Ted, let me start with you. As you went through all of this, piecing this together, the timeline seems very, very clear. I mean, there's proof of life on the 8th at Yellowstone, and then there is no more proof of life afterwards.
Yes, and it's amazing that investigators were able to use one person's cell phone, Alex Cox, to basically find the location of Tylee's body. And you'll see also JJ's body. They went right to the Daybell residence, and where did they go? To where that phone pinged. Sure enough, that's where her remains were found. And again, not in that piece, but what we learned on Friday and what we had heard about in that hearing, the condition of Tylee's remains: burnt and in several locations, likely dismembered.
You know, Ashley, as we're learning all these details from the probable cause affidavit, you see where the investigation has gone, but you see Alex Cox, the brother, interacting with Lori Vallow Daybell and interacting with Chad Daybell. It looks like through his phone, they're able to place him in both locations with the two people who are still alive here.
And with the children as well, which I think now starts to get a little more clear as to why it's tricky to charge Chad and Lori with anything other at this point than what they've been charged with. The man on your screen right now is, well, inconvenient for him, but convenient for them, dead. So charging him isn't an issue, but it certainly does look like he was doing some very suspicious things right as each child was going missing for good. And his cell phone happened to be at exactly those two locations of both sets of remains at exactly the dates that both went missing. Two different dates. One buried by the pond, the other buried in a pet cemetery. Let me just repeat that. A pet cemetery. So Tylee's final resting place was among dogs, cats, and if Chad wasn't lying that day, a dead raccoon. That's how these children were dispensed with.
Julie Grant, you're a former prosecutor like I am. How do you connect Lori Vallow Daybell and or Chad Daybell to the murder, the killing of Tylee?
With Alex Cox, Vinny, I think the connection is through a conspiracy. I think if they can establish that all three of these sick, twisted, deplorable individuals acted in concert to kill these two beautiful, healthy young children with their lives ahead of them, that they can make this case against the two that are still alive, Mr. Doomsday and Cult Mom. And I think it could be both a federal and a state case potentially. I think they can do it with a murder for hire charge if they can prove that Alex Cox was the family hitman, so to speak. And perhaps with Tylee in particular, it could be a federal murder for hire charge. I say that because she was at Yellowstone National Park. We know that park is huge. Most of it's in the state of Wyoming, but parts are also in Idaho. Parts are also in Montana. So depending if he went into interstate commerce, meaning cross state lines, number one, with the intent to commit a murder, number two, and was receiving some kind of consideration from Cult Mom and Mr. Doomsday, number three, I think they've got a federal case against him, Vinny. So I'm saying conspiracy is the way they're going to do this.
All right, let's take a closer look now at the death of JJ, because again, two children, two cases, 2 different days.
Lori Vallow's apartment in Rexburg, Idaho is the last place 7-year-old J.J. Vallow was seen alive. According to this probable cause affidavit, Lori Vallow's friend, Melanie Gibb, and her boyfriend recall seeing J.J. with Lori's brother, Alex Cox, on the night of September 22nd, saying that night he was carrying J.J., who appeared to be asleep with his head on Alex's shoulder. The next morning, they say Lori told them Alex took JJ with him. Gibb and her boyfriend told investigators that Lori complained that JJ had been acting like a zombie, crawling in the kitchen cabinetry and knocked over a picture of Jesus. This is what Melanie Gibb told the East Idaho News.
She had said that he had turned into a zombie the day before I got there. And she was pointing out behaviors of his. Like, look how he's doing this, that's unusual, or look how he's doing that.
Gibb told investigators that Chad Daybell, who wasn't yet married to Lori at the time, is the one that told Lori that JJ was a zombie. According to Gibb, both Chad and Lori believed that once someone became a zombie, the only way to free their original spirit was to kill the host body. JJ never returned to his school. According to the affidavit, on September 24th, Lori called the school and lied, saying JJ was going to be in Louisiana for several weeks, then calling again to say that he would be homeschooled. Alex Cox had an apartment in the same complex as Lori. Using cell phone data, investigators say that the day after JJ was last seen, Alex's phone was traced to Chad Daybell's backyard near the north side of a pond on the property. It's the same spot that investigators would later find JJ's body, covered in 2 layers of plastic, one black, one white, and wrapped with duct tape. The affidavit reads, an incision was made into the white layer of plastic, exposing what appeared to be human remains, the crown of a head covered in light brown hair. The affidavit also states that JJ's remains were beneath several flat rocks and 2 pieces of flat paneling. What's not clear at this point is exactly how JJ was killed.
All right, let's talk about this one. Ted, when I look at and listen to the way you put that one together, it seems that now we've got a human witness who is seeing more, and we've got much more direct evidence about this whole zombie issue, and it connects to Chad Daybell.
Yeah, Melanie Gibb is key to this case. And the good thing is, while others have told different stories that varied in maybe believability, you could argue, Melanie Boudreau, Melanie Gibb has been very straightforward and has cooperated from the beginning. She'll be an excellent witness. I sort of think of Chad Daybell like a Charles Manson. He didn't kill anybody. ended up getting the death sentence in California. The narrative is so strong here. I think there is a case, even though Chad and Lori presumably didn't kill either one of these children.
Yeah, I don't think they physically did it. I think it's Uncle Alex, Ashley, and it's incredibly tragic. But are you surprised that all this is taking place, it seems, from the cell phone data, when he goes to Chad's backyard, that it's in the morning, it's in daylight?
I'm surprised he's that stupid that he had his phone on him at all times. I'm surprised that we have this remarkable timeline. It's like a popcorn trail. Not only back and forth to Lori's apartment where the children lived, staying for an hour and a little bit in the middle of the night, only once the whole time that they lived there. I mean, it's just so conspicuous what he was doing. And it's so conspicuous when you add it to the comments that Lori made to Melanie right around that time as well about these children being possessed by zombies. And the only way to release their spirits is to kill the zombie body. I mean, I hate to say it's like a popcorn trail because this is so sickeningly tragic. I really had a tough time Friday night getting through this. And when I got to the part of the affidavit, Vinny, about Lori Vallow being in Hawaii in January, blitzing about on the beach after her pretty little wedding, she had Tylee's bank card and she had Tylee and JJ's birth certificate. And she'd been using the bank card, or at least someone had been using the bank card since Tylee was last seen, while Tylee's charred, chopped up remains were in the pet cemetery. Lori was in possession of her 17-year-old daughter's bank card and using it. Someone was using it, and Lori was in possession. So if there's not some interstate commerce charge there that gets you to a federal crime, then I don't know how you get her.
Julie, looking at this case involving the death of JJ, to me, it's much clearer in terms of the why of it. And it seems like you've got a witness who can testify to all of that. Will that be, again, enough for a jury? We know when we get inside the courtroom as prosecutors, we get that burden beyond any and all reasonable doubt. They're going to be pointing the finger at someone who cannot respond, someone who can't cut a deal, someone who is 6 feet under himself, Alex Cox.
Right. I think absolutely. And the reason why is because juries love a motive. Prosecutors don't have to prove one. That's a big common misconception. Prosecutors do not have to put forth a motive. But if they can, it makes their case all the more solid. And here, this is as sick and twisted and a messed up motive as you could ever find. The zombie motive, the motive that these kids were pronounced zombies by goofy Mr. Doomsday, and him and Cult Mom decided they had to be killed, and so they got the family hitman, Alex Cox, to do the dirty work. And that's essentially probably what they're going to piece together if the case goes the way we think it's going to go in analyzing this new information. And these details, they're just so sad and sickening. I agree with Ted, absolutely. Melanie Gibb is going to be key because this is a reasonable, rational individual who observed the behavior and witnessed all those statements that they will come in. There's a hearsay exception, like Lori saying that she thought JJ had become a zombie because of some odd behaviors like sitting still and watching TV. I think that's how most normal people in America watch TV, Cult Mom. And JJ had an increased vocabulary that she noticed. Oh, perhaps that's from going to school and becoming smarter, Cult Mom, unlike you. You know, these two, Vinny, they thought they were so smart, untraceable, but as all of Ted's great reporting tonight pointed out, the cell phone evidence, the forensic evidence, it all told the story that they were so tight-lipped and would not tell. And now we'll see if one of them starts squealing now that they're behind bars.
Exactly. And you mentioned forensic evidence. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what can you do with the remains that were recovered. What can you prove? What can you figure out how these children died? Well, Julie Grant spoke with renowned pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht to get some answers. That interview is next.